Good afternoon. Okay, I forgot to fix my webcam from the show the other night. Let's do that very quickly. Welcome to Scouching Live. I am the host of the show, Mr. Will Scouch. What's going on? I'm sure there's nothing to really talk about between now and since Monday, but well, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe there is actually quite a bit to talk about. There we go. The crop is fixed. Just fresh back from the barber, back from the barber shop. Saw my boy Brandon. He gave me a trim. I also forgot to turn the light on. I've been a little bit rushed around. But, just got back from a trip to Costco where my MasterCard was declined 3 times, and that was very awkward. But we sorted it out. They let me live. They let me leave. I served a couple of hot dogs, and that was it. Oh, Tony's here. Hello, Tony. I'm strong and beautiful and wonderful. Well, some days I wake up and feel that way for sure, and then by the time I go to bed, it's gone. But anyway, welcome to the show. So everybody say hello to Tony. But anyway, it is Thursday afternoon, 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Big news in the NHL over the last few days. In one of the most clumsy and awkward firings that I can remember in a long time, the Edmonton Oilers have fired Chris Knobloch. I saw a tweet earlier that Ryan Nugent-Hopkins will be on his 10th coach in 15 years. I would be curious, because I don't know how you would even find this out. Maybe Elite Prospects. But who in the NHL has played for the most coaches per season in their career over the longest period of time? Because that has to be close to a record. 10 coaches in 15 years? That's outrageous. On the same team. That's crazy. I can't even imagine what that experience would be like. Speaking of Elite Prospects, I do want to extend condolences to the whole team, the whole staff, everyone, the family. They lost their founder, Johan Nilsson, or I guess one of the founders, but he was one of the originals. I saw their press release that said he started the company when he was 18. I mean, I don't know where I would be, honestly, without Elite Prospects in a number of different facets. Their database is unmatched, in my opinion. Their reach is unmatched. Their scouting work, I think, is unmatched. And obviously, losing someone like that is a huge blow. And I never met him directly, but I have dealt with the people he surrounded himself with on the business side. And EP is quite a place. It's quite a business, and so really awful. Another one taken from us too soon, and here we are. But yeah, my condolences to the whole site, the staff, and everyone affiliated, and his family. It's awful. But yeah, I mean, crazy week. Obviously, there's also, I mean, I poor Corey Pronman. He's probably, I mean, if I were him, I'd probably just turn the computer off for a few days and go for a walk because, listen, I get it. You put stuff out that people find a little bit controversial, so to speak, maybe a little radical, personally myself included. But you know what? Sometimes just calling it a day and going for a walk is probably a good thing to do. So hopefully that's what Corey's doing. But Corey strikes me as the kind of person who is able to take this one in stride and just keep plugging along. Because if you're serious about this work and you're incapable of just putting your thoughts out there and plugging along and ignoring the masses and the casuals who just pop in and think they know more than you, then this is not the job for you. So, poor Corey, having a week. But we can get into that. I'm sure it'll come up at some point. We also, I just realized now that I forgot to release a report today. I was going to do it for noon, but my haircut ran long. I had a lot more hair than I thought I did. And Brandon just kept cutting and 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 cutting, and I still left it relatively long, more than I'm used to, and so it's going to stay that way, which is fine, but was held in the chair a little longer than I wanted, and then I was held at Costco a little longer than I wanted. It was also, I don't know, It is a Thursday afternoon. Who is at Costco at 1 p.m. Or 12:30 p.m. on a Thursday? Is that like a thing people do on their lunch break? There were like people my age there, and I'm like barely employed. So I don't understand that either. But for some reason, Costco is very busy in the middle of the day on weekdays, at least near me. But at the end of the day, like right when people are getting off work, they don't go to Costco. I guess it's like people just want to go home. So the last thing they want to do is go grocery shopping. But you'd think like, oh, I'm on the way home, I'll pick up a meat pie or something. I don't know, but I guess not. I don't know. But yeah, so there will be a report, I guess tomorrow now. So Mathis Preston will be tomorrow. Scouching subscribers to the site at scouching.ca, they have access to that one. They also have access to Carson Carroll's. I recorded another one that is with the editor at the moment, and that one will probably be done next week. That's also going to be a really fun one you're going to want to watch. And then we've got a bunch more to record. I'll probably be recording another 3 tomorrow morning. And it's going to be a good time. We're going to be having a lot of fun. And we're getting down to it, man. I mean, it is getting to the point now where, like, I'm way ahead of schedule with a lot of the, like, higher-end guys that usually I wait until the end with. So not sure how the rest of the next month is going to go, but we are going to have a lot of fun. And since it did get asked, I think there was a comment on the channel about it, and we got asked about it in the Discord server. We are still doing the mock draft. If you're not familiar, we do a mock draft live on the channel with the community. So I take one of 32 teams, and then 31 other people, first come, first served, go. It's also that registration will be opened to scouching.ca subscribers first. So it's not going to be happening probably for another under a month, like probably June 10th-ish. In that range, we'll be probably doing it then, maybe a little bit later. So you can look forward to that. We are also going to do the same contest we did last year. If you're not familiar, we did the guess the first round challenge, where the winners get scouching subscriptions for the year for free. So that's also something fun. Or you do get equivalent value in merch from the shop. So one way or the other, if you guess the first round of the NHL draft as correctly as possible, you get rewarded for it. So if you think you know how things are going to go, you can register there as well, and that will be opened probably at the beginning of June. So so yeah, there will be quite a few things to do between now and then. I will also admit, before we get into the chat, it's every day when I'm doing office hours in the channel, in the Discord server, and watching some tape with people, it is increasingly difficult to resist the urge to just be like, I'm not learning anything here, I'm gonna call it a day. And just coast until the end of the year. But we have still some due diligence to do, some guys I haven't seen in a few months, and now you've got guys that are coming out of the woodwork that certain people have very, very high, or all of a sudden very low, and you're like, well, what the hell's going on there? So if you're doing your job, you're going to check those guys out another time or two before the end of the year. So we're getting down right to it here, and I'm excited. The more I talk to people, the more I talk to people in the league and fans of different teams and all of that stuff, I'm so excited. I don't know what's going to happen, and I think that's the best thing ever. I think a phenomenon that's kind of happening now is that there are there's a lot more breadth of opinion in the NHL on like what a good player looks like, and what the most desirable players in a draft class are to different teams. And so what you get from that is almost like, I think hockey is a weird sport where you look at the draft, and I know that the mechanics and the culture, I guess you could say, around like the NFL draft and the NBA draft are a little different, because the things the team needs right now definitely matter. Like if your offensive line sucks, you're probably going to go draft some offensive linemen who you think are really good and can give you a boost right away. These guys are 23 years old, 22, 23, 24, and they just step right in, and if it works, it works. Here, it's a lot more long-term. There's a lot more development at play, and there's a lot more breadth of talent, I guess you could say, and a lot more uncertainty, which on one hand you would expect would make things even murkier, but on the other hand you look at, it seems like the idea of like who the top guys are is pretty ironed out relatively early. But if I'm not mistaken, by and large, in the NFL and NBA draft, it's like you could look at different teams in the league and go, well, that is a situation where a team will go, well, we need a point guard. We don't have any point guards, and the ones we might have to sign are very expensive and blah blah, blah or whatever, and so they might completely change their valuation on players very quickly. The NHL is, I think, becoming more like that, because this sport also is like really great because there's a whole bunch of different ways to win. So talking to people, talking to fans, talking to whoever will listen to me and talk to me back, it's very, very, very interesting how wide this is getting. And that I think a big thing, and I think Tony and I kind of touched on this a little bit on Monday night, but one of the major trends that I think over the years that I've picked up, and I think he agreed, I could be wrong, I don't know if he's still here, but a lot of it comes down in the draft to like how important situational fit is. Like, especially, and I don't know if this is just because I'm paying a lot more attention to the NHL now than I did when I was younger, but the number of players who are outcast from one team, go to another and find a job that works for them, or teams who are capable of identifying players where you go, why are they playing that guy 20 minutes a night? And it works, and they're actually kind of good. Like, it makes their team a lot better. It feels like that's happening a lot more. So scaling that back to the draft, there's a lot of that type of thing going on where it's really hard, because I did a hit on Sportsnet 650 in Vancouver the other night, and I've done a couple of other interviews, and like the longer I do this, the more and more difficult it is for me to have like conviction that like something does or does not make sense for a team. Like, I think you have to really try hard and think outside the box, especially maybe in this year's draft class, to go, I don't see how that's a good idea, or I don't see how that's a bad idea. Like, it's very difficult. Like, there's risk with a lot of guys. There's risk in any NHL draft, but like it could very well be that a really good player goes to just the wrong place, and all of the hullabaloo going into it will be for nothing on one way or the other. So it's a very interesting thing to sort of keep your eye on. Like, I kind of know what I'm kind of thinking with regards to this class. My rankings have shifted a little bit over the last little while. I'm starting to go through my video folders and looking at guys and going, all right, I have this guy ahead of this guy. If I were to watch them back to back now with the stuff that I've curated, how do I feel? And like, some players are marching up the board. Like, I've moved Carson Carroll's a little bit further up my board. Like, he's in my top 20 now, and I think that's reasonable. And I think I'm starting to get to that point where I'm like kind of okay. And yeah, I mean, but then I turn around and I look at the top end of the draft, and I just don't. I like, I know a lot of fans are like, they want that top pick, they want that first over. But I think if you fast forward 10 years from now, I think there could be some teams that lost in their minds in the lottery and still end up with a player that they adore. Like, I think that there are teams that did very well this year in terms of the lottery and go, well, we probably maybe should have gone a different direction, but at the same time, maybe that other player who went elsewhere is just a really good fit there, and there's different, I don't know, like, it's very, very weird. But it's fun. It's a good time. All right, let's get into this. Let's have a little discussion here for the next hour and 45 minutes. I'm off to the big city tonight to meet a member of our wonderful community. Actually, he's been a lifer, and he's in town for the week, so we're gonna hang out. And we're gonna have a good time. We're gonna watch the Habs game, and it's gonna be fun. So yeah, gonna have to get out of here relatively quick. So let's talk. Let's chat. Let's do this. All, by the way, just got back from Costco. By the way, these water bottles, 2 for $44 Canadian, which is an absurd amount of money to pay for a water bottle. But this is pretty cool. Watch this. It's got this. Ready? There's a straw built in. Huh? So it's a water bottle with a straw built into it, so I don't even need to tilt it. I can just put it on my desk and there. Free advertising for that, but if you're a Costco member, it's a pretty cool product that I have very much enjoyed. Okie dokie, okie dokie, okie dokie. Sorry about not getting the GM role for Toronto or Vancouver. Yeah, I unfortunately I asked for too much money on both, and they weren't willing to give me. I went into the interview with both teams actually, and I came with the Elon Musk pay package in my hand, and I said, "All right, I'll do the job. If you really want me, I'll do the job, but I'll only do it for this." And it's like, if I win a Stanley Cup in the next 5 years under my contract, you pay me $1 trillion and give me 30% ownership stake in the team. They went, they went, you know, they went a little bit. They didn't like that too much, so they went a different direction. But I tried, but we didn't get there, unfortunately. But yeah, it's a good one. Yeah, no, I don't know. I mean, John Chaykin and Ryan Johnson. I don't know much about Ryan Johnson, but we'll see what happens. I mean, the NHL is definitely doing, the whole hire some fancy alumni to work with a guy who is from the outside. I mean, I kind of get that, honestly. The dynamic of the GM is the nerd, but then hire the players and the people who can talk to the players to be the guys who talk to the players and the guys who are sort of the interface. I think that's a decent dynamic, and we'll see how it goes for Toronto and Vancouver. Which prospects in 26 have in your opinion been the most frustrating to watch? Guys who should be better than what they showed, or guys who remain set in their ways and not changing or evolving? I mean, there's a few. I mean, it is frustrating at times watching Mathis Preston for sure, but I still believe in him. But again, that's a player where the wrong fit can wreck him. Early in the year, I would say Adam Novotny, but the last time, I ever since the World Juniors, I feel like Novotny, his agent might have gotten him in his ear and been like, people are asking questions about you now, son. If you want to be a first round draft pick, you might need to turn it on. And I did a game of him yesterday. He absolutely is turning it on. Hermanson can be frustrating at times. I'm trying to think of guys where it's like they're frustrating, but I want to believe in them and go with them. I mean, yeah, like Nordmark is really frustrating too. I find Holmertz. Someone mentions Holmertz in the comments. Nordmark is a really frustrating player. I think he's a really, really weird one. I'm just looking at my list here. I don't know. I mean, yeah, those guys kind of, sort of, maybe. That's a pretty decent group. I mean, the rest, I mean, if there are others, I probably don't even have them ranked, and I don't really like to, pick on guys I don't have ranked. Because it's kind of like the guys that I think I mentioned that I think are like, yeah, they're frustrating, but it's like they're guys I like and they're guys I'd want to put my weight behind. Am I a Bartholdson believer? I hope. I mean, it would be really fun if he worked. I think he's an interesting player that has some good offensive tools, and I find him very sort of Nikita Klepov coded, but I don't know if he's quite as skilled or gritty as a Klepov. But just that sort of like offensive leaning first, like front third of the ice focused guy who has good finishing ability and a really good shot. Like, I think there's something there. Bartholdson should be drafted, but there are other guys I've prioritized a little more, and I still have some doubts about NHL upside. When it comes to an NHL GM, I think a good GM is like a coach of an NFL team where you have an offensive coach and a defensive coach, and the head coach manages those two. Yeah, I kind of agree. Think about the words. Like, I think this is not specific to you, but I think something that's always important when you're thinking about, like, well, what is this thing? What is this job? What is this responsibility? It's like, well, think about what you're actually saying when you say the title, like general manager, right? You are the guy who's responsible, at least in my understanding with a general manager. It's like, it's not just about the guys that you're putting on the ice, right? It's about helping build the brand and the identity of the team as well, right? Like there's a business side of this too, right? Like for example, when Kyle Dubas came to Toronto, it was a lot of like with Kyle Dubas in Toronto, a lot of what he kind of spearheaded with Brendan Shanahan was like bringing the alumni back in and like doing a lot more sort of kids focused content and entertainment and next generation days and all that stuff, and really sort of modernizing the operation of the team as well as, so like the general manager's job seems to be doing the right thing by surrounding themselves with the people who can help them make the most informed decisions, right? So it is a certain skill set to doing that and like operating the team and making sure that the people who are working under you, like even something as simple as making sure hotels are booked and making sure your travel is organized and smooth and all of that, like that can be a big factor, right? Like the last thing you want is a disorganized trip from, say, Vancouver to Florida and you're mentally not on your game, right? And that is something that if the GM is a little bit lackadaisical and is not really paying too much attention to that, or not on the person responsible for planning all of that and executing it, then they're not doing their job. So that's kind of how I see it as well. I think a lot of people see the GM as like playing an NHL video game, and that's part of it, but that I don't think that's the job, or at least if I were doing it, like that's not entirely how I would think about it. Like I think your hockey ops department and your assistant management is a lot more about all of that. And like you need to be, if you're a GM, you need to hire a good scout to run your scouting department, because the GM's job is not really to scout, right? Like that shouldn't be their job. It's the scouting, like an NHL team. I was told an NHL team that over the last decade went through an ownership change. Like the last thing they tackled was their amateur scouting department, because mathematically and like logically, it was the lowest priority on the totem pole for like completely overhauling the organization top to bottom, right? Like it's the investment in the future part that like is not the biggest priority. So they went from the top down and everything else got shifted. So this is a relatively, it is a major part of a team, but like it's not for a general manager like a core responsibility with regards to like understanding the dynamics of the draft and who to draft and all this stuff like that. There's just not enough time. I mean, I do this all day, every day, and there's maybe 100 guys that I could give a pretty good read on. And I don't have the time to do anything else really based on how much work I'm doing. So like, I don't know. It's an interesting, but I think you're right. Since Team Scouching won the draft lottery and has the pick of the litter, which player do you plan on adding to the group? I think it's McKenna. And I think it makes sense for Toronto. I mean, I have McKenna, Stenberg 1-2. I think they both could have similar impacts, but here's how I put it, right? Based on all my experiences up and down with McKenna over the year and Stenberg over the last 2 years especially, I always come back to something like that Steve Jobs once said, which was something along the lines of like, if you wake up in the morning 7 days in a row and you dread the day that's coming, like 7 work days in a row or 2 weeks, I think it might be, and you dread the day, then you're in the wrong job, right? And I think that can kind of be applied to this, where it's like, if you wake up multiple days in a row and you're like, and I did this, right? Like I woke up multiple days in a row. I had Stenberg at 1, McKenna at 2. And every single day, I actually like went out of my way to like log it and think about it. When I wake up in the morning, am I okay with that order of guys at the top? And I went back and watched all of what I pulled on both of them, and it's really close. But every single day, I was like, I can't say no to Gavin McKenna that high. Like, I just have to believe that it's going to work. I have to. I'd rather try it and see what happens and go with it, because he's truly special, right? Like, to me, it's along the lines of like, I imagine what a similar debate might have been for the Anaheim Ducks when like Ivan Demidov was on the board and they wanted Beckett Seneca. Like they went with Seneca and he's become a very good player for them. I still watch Demidov with the Habs and I go, that guy's amazing. And I would, if I were Piet Verbeek, I probably would have leaned more in the direction of Demidov. I would have for sure. And so it's like it would have been really hard for me to wake up 2 weeks in a row and going, I'll skip on Demidov. You know, it's like there's that upside and that pure like high end dynamic play that drives play on his own. Like he made Oliver Kapanen a 20 goal scorer, right? Like I see that and I go, I want that on my team. And so with McKenna, it's like you wake up multiple days in a row and you're like, I'd rather go with that. You know what I mean? So McKenna's one for me now. It almost certainly will be McKenna. The only thing that would knock it off the board is, you know, if people come back from the combine going, no. You know, we'll see what happens. I know there are some teams out there that I would imagine, I don't know for a fact, but it would surprise me if he was a lock at 1 for every NHL team in the league. It would surprise me. And now that Corey Pronman has him at 4, that also gives me a lot of thought as to him being like more of a questionable one. But with regards to like what he brings to the game, how much potential there is in his game, like it wouldn't be about him not being a good player if it didn't work. It would be about him just not even understanding what his potential is and putting in the work to get there. Like he has so much potential in the world, it would be such a waste if it didn't work. So if it were me, I'd create the environment where I'd do my best to make sure it worked. And you gotta hope, right? At some point you gotta hope and throw caution to the wind. And yeah, as much as I love Stenberg, as much as I think he's a very, 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 very talented player, like McKenna is, with the right guys around him, man, he could be quite something. Was player deployment the main issue with Berube and the Leafs? No, not really. I mean, not really. I think a lot of the we will go through Pronman's rankings. I have not done it yet, but we will. We'll get to it. I'm just catching up here. The player deployment in Toronto, it wasn't necessarily really the problem. The players were the problem. Like Brad Treliving went out and brought in a bunch of guys who were not great NHL players, especially in the defensive area of the game. Berube did do some mystifying stuff. Like I like Matthias Michelli, and like I don't know why you were healthy scratching him. But I mean, he also was deploying Matthews in more of a defensive role, which I see why you're doing that. And I think if the belief now is with Austin Matthews that his 60 goal season days are done, like if the medical staff is going to the coaching staff and being like, if you play this guy in an offensive role, he's not going to be that guy anymore. It's just not going to happen. Then I kind of understand the idea of saying, well, okay, he could still score 30, 40 goals a season, but be an elite two-way player, which he certainly at his best can be. Then I kind of understand the deployment on Matthews a little bit more, and I would believe that, but I don't know if that's what's happening here. So I think the biggest problem with Toronto, Berube did not. I think Berube had the team quit on him. I don't know. You look at some of the numbers that the Leafs put up under him, and it's just inexcusable. Like I don't think any coach can sort of explain away the kind of numbers that the Toronto Maple Leafs were putting up in terms of how much they were facing in terms of shots against, how much they were getting blown out every game on the score sheet and on the shot chart, and what they were doing to their goaltenders in front of the team. Like the players were not great, but watching Craig Berube do his interviews and everything, it did not give me a whole lot of confidence that he he was fully engaged either. I think past a certain point he kind of was over it, and then the team was over it, and Brad Treliving was over it, and it just fell apart. So it's it's the right thing to do. You know what I mean? Like it's the right call for John Chayka to just come in and go, you know what? I met with him. I met with some of the players. This just, I don't even want to get to January. I don't want to run that risk. And I don't think John Chayka can do that. Like, I don't think he has the leeway with the media and the fans in Toronto based on his resume and all the baggage that people think he comes with. I don't think he has the bandwidth to go, let's try it with Berube and see how it goes. Like, I think he would just be like, you know what, I'd rather just rip the Band-Aid off now. Last year was abysmal, no matter which way you slice it, you know, and now we're in reboot mode, and let's not rebuild, but reboot mode, and let's find a guy who works with this group. And, you know, I look, Kent Hughes hired Martin St. Louis, right? Like, what's Paul Correa doing these days, right? Like, who knows? Again, it's like when they hired their GM. I don't care who it is. I don't think Leaf fans should care who it is. If anything, the right decision is probably going to be the one that people hate the most. So I get the feeling they're going to do their due diligence on this as well, because they know what's at stake. Like, I don't think John Chayka is an idiot, and I think he knows what's at stake. I think he knows that the patience is like this with Toronto and their fans. Like, it's like this. And like, I think over the last week or so since he's been introduced, that margin for error has maybe gone from this to like this, you know? So I think he's going to take his time here and be like, all right, let's zero in here and see what we can find. And if they hire whoever, I don't care who it is, then go for it, right? Like, who knows? It's funny. Like, it's funny that the margin for error being this almost gives you a lot of leeway to do whatever you want, right? Like, what's the worst that can happen? It goes from this to this and you get fired and then that's it. I don't know. Or at least people want you fired. I don't know what's worse, but yeah, I don't know. But I don't think the main problem was deployment with Toronto. I think it was more like just everything was awful. When you have time, who are the most fun players in the draft, hits and shenanigans wise? Oh, hits and shenanigans wise. Honestly, I think Yustavar Karlsson, he just runs around and hits everything that moves and is really annoying. Victor Plante, I think, could be another one of those. Viggo Björk is kind of like that as well. Adam Valentini also, like, you wouldn't expect it, but Valentini kind of has that in his game. He's got a bit of that, like, how do you do kind of thing in his game. I would use more colorful language, but I think you get what I'm saying. Maybe Jackson Cover too. Like, if I were coaching Jackson Cover, I could definitely see how that could be more of an asset in his game. But he does have that. It's there. It's just like, I don't know if he's fully leaned into it, and like if the overall package around that has like gotten to the point where he could really leverage it. But there's a bit of that to his game as well. Gleb Pugachev, dude, Gleb Pugachev could be such a menace. He's like, I've had him in my first round for a while, and he is tremendously fun to watch. And I bet he could be a guy where you would hate to play against him, and other teams will want to rip his head off based on some of his antics. Like I said, I watched him at one point hit a guy so hard that above the plastic on the boards, he was horizontal and then fell flat on his back to the ice with his helmet flying off of his head. You don't see that all that often, but a guy like Pugachev can do that to you, and it's really, really funny. But those guys for sure. I think the best example of that probably is Valentini, honestly. Maybe Plante, but Plante doesn't have that, like, get under your skin. It's just his energy and intensity and physicality. But yeah, Valentini definitely has a bit of that, like, you know, off the face-off, he'll give you a little butt end in the gut to set a message. I don't know. Based on how he plays physically and all of that. I don't know. There's some good stuff there. Do you see Brad Marchand and Big O Bjork? Just a little rat behavior and obviously not a winger. I mean, kinda. It's not necessarily he's like a rat. He just grinds. Like he just grinds. he just kind of gives her. There's not necessarily like that real like Marchand energy to him, but could he learn it and lean into it? Absolutely. But he definitely is the type of guy who will go to the net. He will wrestle. He'll get into dirty areas. He'll get his hands dirty. He's more physical than you might think. Like there's a lot of that in his game for sure. And it's a lot of the reason why I'm not so concerned about him projecting to higher levels, because he's another one where if you underestimate him, he'll remember probably, and and that's a part of his game I think that's really developed over the last 2 seasons for sure. A little bit of an earlier prospect, but Matt Barzal looked like he was going to be a perennial all-star. He's good, but he's not there. What happened? Well, I mean, he's been like leading that team in scoring for a long time, right? Like, I think Barzal, like, I think he is a really good player. Like, I think the Islanders without Matt Barzal would be in a lot of trouble. I think Barzal, I don't think there's anything that happened. Like, Barzal, I remember at the time was like consensus back half the top 10, something like that, and he went a little later. And I know that teams were not a huge fan of his sort of professional attitude, I suppose, at the time. Like, that was the rumor. Well, look how that paid off for the Islanders. He was a frustrating player at the time, kind of, but like, and he kind of is in the NHL, but he's unbelievably good, I think. And for a guy drafted in the middle of the first round, I don't think anything happened. I think he's doing just fine. Is Pronman being a goofy goober, or does he have some intel? He was the first to drop right and 4 in his ranking, if I recall correctly. You do recall correctly. He was one of the first. And look, what I did was I looked at Pronman's list that I tracked in March and compared it to this one that just dropped. The differences are staggering. The difference is staggeringly wild. Like, Yegor Shilov went from a late first round pick to 100 and something. In 2 months, that does not happen. Like, there are some players that I've added to my 70s now that I didn't have ranked before. There are players at 35 that I had at like 27, but going from 30 to 108 in 2 months is absurd. And either he started watching him in the last 2 months, or he talked to NHL people, and NHL people were like, you're going to want to put that guy lower. And he did. Like, I don't know what's going on there. And I'm not going to pretend like there's something nefarious or anything. I'm not going to throw that out there or anything. But I get the feeling, I mean, I think Pronman does have his finger on the pulse pretty good in terms of like where the league is thinking. And I bet that there are people who are feeding him information that they want out there for one reason or another. Because I don't know. I don't know. I've met Corey a couple of times. He may not even remember me. But a couple of times, like top prospects games here and there and all that, like media booths here and there, whatever. But I can't point my finger at it. I don't know. But it does seem like his list sort of, like, I feel like there are things on his list that may not pan out, right? Because at the end of the day, all it takes is one team to like a player, and it wildly shifts a draft board. But I get the feeling that he's got the ear of some people. He's got the ear of some people. Or some people have his ear, I think. And there's some stuff out there. Did AJ get fired? No, AJ is just working a lot. And when he isn't working, he's sleeping because he's been doing the night shift a lot. So AJ is not fired. We're still talking. We're in the Scouching Discord server now. We're watching a lot of playoff hockey together, especially the later games, later in Eastern time at least. And that's been a lot of fun. And AJ pops his head up there, and we hang out. It's a good time. Why has Malhotra become a riser all of a sudden? He feels like one guy put him high on a list and everybody copied. I haven't watched a ton of them, but I feel like there are better options. I would agree with you. Look, I mean, I think with Malhotra, there's a couple of things going on. I think with Malhotra, there's a couple of things. For starters, as I burp in my mouth, pardon me. I mean, I think a couple of things are true. Number one, and this has been evident since the beginning of the year, I swear to God, there are things that players do at the junior level that make NHL scouts go immediately, that's a first round pick. And usually it revolves around, if a guy is trying to hit them or knock the puck off of them, can they make a play? That's one. And two is, can they have a level of physicality to them? Like, NHL teams, I think, are extremely, extremely heavy on, can they hold back opponents? And can they make a play while doing that? And I understand that. I get that. And Malhotra has been very good at that. And so that is what has kind of... The other thing, though, and I don't know, maybe I'm wrong, but if Caleb Malhotra's name were Steve Smith, I don't think we'd be here. But the fact that his dad is Manny Malhotra, Vancouver is bad, and Malhotra coaches for them, makes it an easy story to write, right? It makes it a very easy story to write, and he's a center, and he's 6'2". I think as well that he has also greatly benefited from the team that he plays on, right? Like, and I can illustrate that by looking at his point production. Yes, he had 84 points this year in a full year, which is not incredible by CHL standards for a top 3 pick generally. Not always a negative, but, you know, but at the same time, Brantford was so good that that's less than 30% of the team's goals. His points per game is less than 30% of the team's goals per game. And I'm just going down my list of guys here, like Gavin McKenna, 39.6. Ivar Stenberg, 25, and that's in the SHL. Mathis Preston, 42 with Vancouver. Carson Carroll's even, 35. Ryan Lynn, 37. Wiggle Sorensen, 32. Nikita Klepov, 43. So when it comes to actually generating offense, you're getting a lot more pound for pound output out of other players. And when you watch Malhotra, I still am very surprised that there's not more weight put on just how good. I can't believe Minnesota Wild fans aren't screaming and yelling about how good Adam Banach has been this year. Like, that guy is looking like one of the most dominant OHL players out there this year. Cooper Dennis, I would never have expected to be one of the better OHLers out there this year. Like, he was so good this year. And last year, watching him in the USHL, it's like, yeah, he's a lot of fun. He's very skilled, but he just is not scoring a tremendous amount. Like, again, I think a number of things are happening, right? Malhotra he's got the bloodlines. He's a center. He's been productive. His team is very good. And he does things that NHL scouts look for. And I also believe, too, that like the NHL is not thinking like me with regards to the landscape of the leagues in the world. Like, I look at the two guys Malhotra's playing with. Like, Malhotra was a half point a game guy in the BCHL. And then all of a sudden, he's on a rocket ship to the moon. And you look at the other two that are playing with him a lot of the time, Banach and Dennis. Those were like point per game or less USHL players last year, and now they're some of the most dominant guys in the OHL. We just saw the OHL final. Kitchener went 16-2. Like, it's just a very sketchy place for me now. And so I think people are not on that wagon yet. Or maybe they think I'm wrong. Not that specifically, but like maybe they disagree with that and they still think it is just as good as it always been. You know what I mean? And at the end of the day, time will tell. But for me, with Malhotra, that's kind of where I think it comes from. There are things about his game that people really love that I think are genuinely worth being valued. But I don't know. I finished my data set on him the other day. And even in the last game I did of him, which was the one before they got eliminated, I think, or game 3, something of that series. I don't remember. It was part of the final series. It was more of the same. Like, Malhotra has consistently been exactly what I've thought he's been for a very, very long time. And that is pretty remarkable. And I feel like there are a lot of gaps in his game that I would not draft that high. Could I be wrong? Of course, right? Of course. But I don't know. And again, It's the same story as a bunch of guys last year. I've got him at what? Where do I even have him? Yeah, I have him at 15. So I think I think at the very, very, very worst, he's a top 20 guy in this class. Very worst. But some people think he's top 3. So it's like, I think he is one of the 20 best players in the world for his age. Some people think he's one of the 3. That's not that big of a difference, really, if you think about it. And I think in this year's draft class, I think there's a decent sized gap, but I don't know. Like, it could work. I could see it working because there are things about his game where I go, I wish a lot more centers played like that sometimes, because playing under pressure in the NHL is kind of how you keep a job. So we'll see what happens. I don't think it is certainly when he's drafted going to be a catastrophe if he's like the 2nd or 3rd pick overall. I don't think it's obviously a catastrophe from day one. I don't think that. I don't think anybody should think that way, by and large, outside of some extreme examples, you know? But I don't know. It's not what I would do. It's not the decision I would make. I just think there's too much uncertainty and too many gaps and too many question marks that sketch me out. How come Chase Reed fell so hard? According to whom? I've had him pretty much in the same slot for months. To me, Reed's an elite skater, great puck carrier, strong passer. His defensive game needs to be stronger. Better skating Morgan Riley. Well, I don't know about better skating Morgan Riley, but I think he's been at 10 for me for a long time, or at least no higher than 8. I like, if you think there's a Morgan Riley there, I kind of agree with you. I don't know about better skating Morgan Riley. I remember Morgan Riley when he was 18, 19, 20, 21 years old, and that guy could absolutely fly. And I don't know about Reed being that. But the big problem for me with Reed is that his defensive game is very passive, free of a lot of engagement, pretty inconsistent, tough areas of the ice. You don't notice him a whole lot, defensively especially. But as a good puck rusher with good offensive tools, like, I think it's fine. I think there's a lot of defensemen at the top end this year who have radically different playing styles but bring similar value to the game. Who do you like the most? If it's Chase Reed, fine. Right? Fine. But again, I keep going back and I go, yes, and I feel like out of Verhoff and Schmitz and Gustafsson, he's playing in by far, I think, the easiest environment out of all of them. Villeneuve, I think, has a better talent floor than Reed does in terms of his skating and skill combination and creativity and projecting as an offensive NHL defenseman that can produce. So that's why I have him higher than Reed. But like, if you just want guys who can grab the puck and rip it, just skate with it, go nuts. But I think you're increasingly seeing a lot of players or a lot of teams avoid puck rushing defensemen. It's not really the most valuable trait in a game, I don't think, to teams. But, you know, look, if he goes first overall, whatever, right? Fair, whatever. Okay. Again, I wouldn't do it, but it's not like he's a bad player. He is a good player. I think it's a close group at the top, and I don't know. Like, he's an older guy for the draft class. It is awfully strange to me that a guy who could not stick it in the American system comes to Canada and immediately becomes one of the most dominant defensemen in the OHL. That also, like, did he flip a switch, or, you know, is there something going on? I don't know. But it is a weird time to do this job. I will say that. It is a weird time to do this job. Is this an above average top 16? Well, I mean, it depends on what you think by above average. I think if things break right, then yes. I think if things go well for these guys, then yes. I think it could be a very strong group at the top. But I think that some of these guys have a really safe floor that could also work really well. Guys like Suvanto, Carroll's, even Malhotra has a really solid floor, projectable. Belchets, but like the skilled guys like Novotny and Cullen and Hermanson, like, I think there's a chance that they might struggle a little bit, but if it works, it's gonna pop, right? It's gonna be awesome. So it could go a number of different ways, but I have definitely had a lot more fun watching this class than last year, and I have definitely felt a lot better about these guys a lot of the time compared to some prior years. Bill Zanon. Yeah, I saw Zanon. Zanon scored a goal in his first game. Yeah, it was pretty sick. It's too bad he's not very good. At least that's what people told me last year. Makes you look like a koala when you drink from it. Well, that works. Well, I just shot it all over my desk, so still learning how to use this thing. Hope I didn't fry my microphone or anything. I think we're all right. Will acting like he saved money despite spending a mortgage worth of money on 2 water bottles. Look, my friend, have you been to a store? Are you old enough to shop? Everything is like $80 now. Everything is $80. These things on Amazon are, I think, $35 each normally. So getting 2 for $44, I think, is a good deal. And this thing is also sort of company colors, sort of, pretty close. And it's pretty sick. It's pretty good. I'm a believer in paying for things that are a little more expensive if you're going to keep them and they have some sort of separating factor that makes it worth the money. You know what I mean? I could spend $8 on an Nalgene, but then I couldn't just put this on the desk and get water from it. I'd have to tilt it back like a plebeian, right? Hey, and we're all supposed to be drinking more water, you know? So, and it's got a locking mechanism on it, you know? It's got bells and whistles. I'll take it. And also, I will say, very popular item at Costco. There were a lot of middle-aged people wrestling over a pile of these. So clearly, the people are onto it. Get a soda drink hat. You know what? That's actually, I'm surprised. I'm sad I didn't think of that. That's a really good idea. I should just get a hat with some hoses attached to it. That's way easier than this. That's even easier than this. With some notable prospects making the World Championships like Stenberg and Björk, what are you hoping to see from them at the event? I don't know. I'm not really hoping to see anything, honestly. I just want to see what it looks like. And you also forgot my goat, Doman Christoph Schongoth. Although, is Hungary? I don't think Hungary's even in the top division this year, are they? I'll double check, but yeah, I mean, I just kind of want to see what it looks like. I'm keeping my oh, Stevie Grumley's going to Portland. Well, that makes a ton of sense. I like Stevie Grumley. That's a good one. Anyway, let's stay on point here. Yeah, so Hungary's at the World Championships this year. I think Schongoth is going to be on the team, right? Yeah, Doman Schongoth is on the team. What about that other guy? Is he on that team? What's that other guy's name? No, he's not. I don't remember what his name is. I would know if I saw it, but anyway. Yeah, Schongoth will be there, so that'll be fun. I've been watching some of him. But yeah, I don't know. I'm keeping my my thoughts a little bit limited. I just kind of want to see what it looks like. Like seeing Schmitz again will be very, very interesting. I don't think Rudolfs Burzkallens was added to Latvia's roster. Yeah, no. But he has been really good in the playoffs for Muskegon. I've really, really liked how his game has come along. Yeah, I had 3 points the other night. Dang. But I really, really have liked what I've seen out of Burzkallens' game in the last little while. He's marched up my list a little bit. I'm Team McKenna for the Leafs, but can't help to think of Schmitz's upside at 1. Would that be an egregious pick? Honestly, I don't think it would be egregious. I have Schmitz at 4. He's my number 1 defenseman. And he's at the top end of the tier that isn't McKenna Stenberg. Like, if you want a defenseman, he would be my guy. I think that, like, to me, I feel even better about it after watching the Avs a lot in this playoff series, or in both series they've played. I think that there's Brent Burns there. Like, if you like your defenseman like Brent Burns, I think that guy would have I think that guy looks pretty darn good. I'll take it. I see you move Carroll's up a decent amount. Did you see something new you liked recently? Feel there's a strong chance Flames take him at 6. Would prefer a forward like Bjork or Lawrence. Look, with Carroll's, it's like I'm doing this thing now, and I've said this on the show before, but what I'm doing now a lot of the time when, especially like if it's nighttime and I'm not going to bed yet, I'm just going through my folders and ABing guys and just going, what does this guy look like? This guy versus this guy, this guy versus this guy. And now that I'm putting videos together, and I've done that for a number of players at this point, I think we're up to almost 20 already. I'm watching these guys and I'm going, this Carroll's guy, I think I should have him ahead of. There are things I have in his game that I think are really, I think potentially problematic, but at the same time, it's like I honestly like take a step back and go, right, but do I feel the same way about this other guy? You know, do I feel similar feelings about this other guy and have similar question marks? And if the answer is yes, but I see things in Carroll's game that I think are a decent floor, then I'll go with Carroll's. And like with Carroll's, I think his defensive game, it needs some development. It needs some coaching. He needs to make some tweaks. But generally, the way that he reads the game is pretty good. And his physical, like the way that he plays as a physical defenseman, I think is very well done and very calculated and very projectable. But I still do not see him as any more than a guy for a pick in the teens, maybe. Right? Like I see a ton of other defensemen that I have really, really liked. Like we did this in the scouting server the other day, but we tracked a game of Carson Carroll's and finished him, then tracked a game of Verdi Svensk and finished him. And it's like night and day watching those two guys. Svensk, we're doing a report on him, and it's coming out probably next week. And Carroll's is coming out tomorrow or Monday. I don't remember. I don't think his offense projects super well unless there's already an offensive zone faceoff, personally. Like, I think his playmaking is very impressive, but it's going to be pretty limited to like off the draw plays and like jumping into the offensive zone. And I just don't know if he has the skating ability there right now and the skill combination right now to do it in the NHL. It's possible. But again, it's like I have concerns, and I think that the biggest concerns are like watching him defend the rush. Like he has this thing where the game will be coming at him. His feet are like this the whole way back into the defensive zone. They're not moving this way or this way. They're not doing crossovers. It's just bone straight skating backwards and gliding. And then when the puck gets flipped behind him, he waits until it's 10 feet behind him before pivoting and going back and getting it. Like, it's very like Sam Dickinson coded from what I remember of watching Sam Dickinson, right? Like Dickinson on retrievals and along the boards, it's like he was always late and always slow to react, always slow to make a decision. And with Carroll's, it can be like that too. And so that's a tough thing for me to see. Like, that's not an easy thing to just learn, right? But luckily now in this environment, you can go to college, you can take your time and be patient. And I think that's a good idea for Carroll's. I just worry that a team looks at him. Like, I saw someone say that he's the most NHL ready defenseman in the draft. And I just think that's asinine. Like, I think he's got some some time to, he needs some time. Did you go through Prominence rank? Yeah, okay. So let's pull those up. One sec. Let's see if there's any quick ones I could bang out. Do you think Sundin will try to get the players on board with no more quitting on a coach? What do you think the answer to that is no? Like, the only logical answer to that question, you already know. It can't be no. like if it were no, then then everything is lost, right? Like, the answer to that question, there's only one logical answer, right? Like, it can't be like, yes, Matt Sundin got hired to ensure that the players don't listen to coaches and will not try to gain control, right? Like, yeah. Do you think the Ruck Twins will go to the same team, whoever it is? I mean, it's gonna be possible, and from what I have heard through the grapevine, that's what they would like. But I don't know. I don't like the idea of drafting a storyline. And I think you're drafting a storyline when you draft those guys. Okay, so let's do this. Let's take a look at the Pronman's rankings. So I pull them up. I have to make sure I'm signed into the right account here. I am. Okay, so let's do this. Actually, you know what? Since it's paywalled, I don't actually think I should do this. So let's do this instead. There it is. There it is. Okay. Pronman. All right, I got it in front of me here. Okay. So the main thing, like, for me with this that doesn't really make a whole lot of sense, and I mean, I took the piss a little bit by posting two players whose were listed as the same skill set but 40 something picks apart. Which I just, like, if that's the thing that was interesting was when I tweeted that out, there were a lot of people who were like, yeah, but if you actually listened to him, you could understand why. And it's like, well, that might be true, right? That might be true. But if we have to get to this point for me to understand, then the system is not good, right? Like, if it takes you going, well, it's not about what's written and presented in the article, it's about how he explains it as a difference, then why have, like, I don't know, it just doesn't make any sense to me. It doesn't make any sense. So I mean, look, clearly someone mentioned it in the comments, but clearly there is a thought of, like, look, two wingers haven't gone 1-2 in the draft since 2007. All right? You're telling me that NHL teams who will look high and wide, who will search far and wide for defensemen and centers, you're going to tell me that they're not going to find reasons to devalue a winger who scores a ton of points and is a little bit problematic as a hockey player, who is also in the middle of legal trouble. You're going to tell me that they're not going to have some level of doubt about that player and would rather just go for a defenseman? I think it's entirely possible. That being said, knowing how this has looked relative to last go around and 2 months ago, McKenna could be at 1 in a month, right? Who knows? I don't know. But yeah, I mean, like, I think that these guys at the top end, I mean, like, if you wanted Schmitz, I guess I could see the argument. I wouldn't do it, but it's a pitch you could make to me, because I find, especially McKenna, frustrating enough where I could be like, all right, maybe we skip over him. Maybe. I don't think I would be comfortable. It's a risky call, but, like, even Stenberg, that's a tough pitch to me, because he is really good. Like, a really, really good hockey player, and I really feel like skipping over him to draft a defenseman is a big, big, big risk. We'll see, but I don't know. And, like, Malhotra, Carroll's, Rudolph, that's just how it's going to be. You know, I don't have them there at all. Rudolph I have in my second round. Like, I just don't see it there. But, and, like, the other thing too, I don't think he had Wyatt Cullen ranked in March, and now he's a top 10 guy. Like, that's the kind of thing where, as charitable as I am, I'm like, where have you been? Right? Like, I've had Cullen in my mid-first round for months. And, like, you're telling me that you have a guy in your top 10 that in the last 2 months has showcased to you that he's a top 10 pick. Like, he was at the under 18s and he was awesome, right? Of course. But, like, is that what you were waiting for? Is that what you were waiting for? Was, like, him to be at the under 18s and do stuff there? And then you're like, yeah, this guy looks like a top 10 pick. Like, it's just weird, right? Like, it just makes you go, when so many people have been on the Wyatt Cullen bus for a long time. I mean, you can go back to the beginning of this season. I was talking about how Cullen was my sort of dark horse on the NTDP last year. By that, I mean like when he was 16. And he's been way better than even I expected, especially considering he's missed time to an injury. But going from unranked to top 10 in 2 months is wild. I mean, Casey Mutrin, like he's been on the Mutrin bus for a while. I am too, but even I'm like, well, you're putting Mutrin and Bugachev and Hemming and like it is very like those guys ahead of Lawrence and Bjork when Lawrence was number 1 on his list at one point. Then like I think you're just looking at the game in a way that is very myopic, right? Like I think you're looking at those players. Like I love Casey Mutrin, and I think he's going to be a super valuable third line winger. Just a really energetic, physical guy. Same thing with Pugachev. Belchet's, maybe there's a little more upside there. He's not necessarily that same type of player. But like all 4 of those guys back to back to back to back, just being big wingers. I see the value in those guys, but you're telling me you're going to skip over 2 centers, especially 2 centers like Bjork and Lawrence, who have, like, I think there's a difference, right? I don't know. Hear me out. But I think there's a difference between 2 different types of thinking. One, I don't want to look like a fool, so I will draft a guy who I can play. And who can I play? Big, heavy, physical wingers. Done. Call it a day. On the other hand, there's a whole other set of things in a game that factor in to actual impact on the ice. That is not just being a big, heavy, physical winger. You know? And again, I want to be clear. The players that are on this side for me in this range for him, I like. It's just these guys, these are like difference maker level players. Like, I think Lawrence and Bjork could be like, you draft them and for the next 10 years, you're like, thank God we have these guys. The other 3, it could rather be like, I'm really happy they're here and they are very good at what they do. But it's a different, so I think that teams are often, and I guess in turn, Corey here, is thinking this is what people are prioritizing. The big, heavy, physical guys who you know there's less perceived risk because you can throw them over the boards for 400 games and they'll get better and better. You'll give them but the same standard will not be applied to a Viggo Bjork or a Tynan Lawrence, right? Maybe. So for me, I don't think about it that way. But I think there is a lot of this, like, I want to keep my job type thing. So I'll go with the Casey Mutrin because he goes out there and hits. People will notice him. Like, people will notice Casey Mutrin watching him play. People will notice Gleb Pugachev when he's playing. Therefore, that makes me look smart. But I think if you look at the details of their game, I think it's not even close. I think Bjork and Lawrence it's not even close. They may not be as, I don't know. Like, let me look actually. I want to see how much more physical, like a Belchet's relative to Lawrence and Bjork. So Belchet's about 13 hits per 60, which is pretty good. Lawrence, it's 6, and Bjork, I think, is it like 8? 7. So, like, you're not taking that big of a downgrade. Are they not actually paywalled? If they're not paywalled, then we can do it. Let me just double check. Let's see. Maybe they're not paywalled. Oh, they're not. Okay. Yeah, they're not paywalled. Then let's do this. Okay. Yeah, so we're around here. And especially separating them by a tier. I think that's wild to me. Okay. Yeah, I mean, like, Hextall in the first round is great. I love that. I don't know. I mean, this is the part of the draft where like it just gets wide open. I mean, these two guys, I don't know how you can have Novotny behind Liam Ruck. It's not that complicated to me, right? Liam Ruck was a point a game ish, maybe a little lower. And then Andrew Bassett came to town and his point production went up 65%. Right? Like, I don't think that's a coincidence. Whereas Adam Novotny was playing with like Adam Levac and like some other guy and put up 30 plus goals and is a ridiculously good skater and a ridiculously good grinder. I have not really seen that out of Liam Ruck, at least not in a projectable way. But you know, I don't know. I mean, Patrick Plumans is a first round pick. Like this seems very Adam Guyon coded. Like Guyon had a couple of good games on the international stage and ended up a top 40 pick. And I don't know. I don't think he's been a particularly good AHL goalie this year. Like he kind of hasn't had a great run of it since. I like Plumans though. Like as a goalie, I really like Plumans. But again, like the confidence with which you would have to draft a guy like that in the first round when he's coming out of the Latvian Pro League is a lot. That is a lot, right? Especially if you're considering his skating as a goalie below average. Like, I don't know. But yeah, and like Villeneuve, like this is kind of what I mean, right? Villeneuve, a lot of things that are above average. I would disagree with this to a point, but I would definitely go no higher than average. But I think it's definitely something like that. Whereas, like, yeah, you go up a few spots and he doesn't even have 5 categories for Alessandro Diorio, right? And don't tell me that it's because he's small. He's 5'11", right? Like, he's not that small, you know? But then you go up, like, you know, Ilya Morozov. Average, below average, high-end compete level. Fair enough, right? Average, below average, high-end compete. You know, like, I don't know what we're doing here. Like, if you have to sort of go and say, well, you have to read between the lines, you have to think about it a different way. It's like, well, then it's not a great sit. Like, you're telling me guys that are tiers apart score the same, and that just makes no sense to me. And I'm not perfect either. Like, my scoring system is also not what it is. It's not perfect, but you know, like none of this I have a huge problem with. I don't really see it with Vanacek, but whatever. I like Ryder Cali. He's solid. I think Klepov is another one. Let me pull up his list from last 2 months. Again, 2 months ago. Like that's the important thing to remember. 2 months ago, I think he had Hurlburt 20 spots higher 2 months ago. He had Klepov 15 spots higher. He had Marcus Nordmark at 11. He was 36 spots higher than this. Malte Gustafsson was 11 spots lower. Like some of these changes have been absolutely drastic. And I mean, these are guys that have been in this range for me all year. And I've been yelled at all year about Hurlburt and Klepov and all these guys, you know, it's, you know, whatever, it's fine. But like at this point, like these are just, again, you're just checking the boxes. Big goalies, bunch of goalies. Big, but I don't really see much in Gashelov. Big-ish. He plays kind of big. Like it's just, it is kind of how NHL teams think. Like this is what I mean. Like you get to the NHL draft and everybody thinks there's some sort of consensus, and then you come out and go, whoa, they drafted a lot of big guys, just big guys. And that's just the way she goes. That's what the common thought is just draft the big guys, draft the guys that have size, because that you can't teach it, right? And at this point in the draft, like, I don't know, do I have confidence Thomas Vandenberg's going to be an NHL player? Maybe. I like him, but I don't have confidence, you know? Dane Boyker, Doman Jongoth, it's possible, but I don't have confidence. I like Burrs-Counts. I really like Anderson. I have time for a lot of these guys. But like, I think we're splitting hairs at this point, you know, with this, but my bigger issue is like, you know, like, I don't know how you don't call Mathis Preston's shot elite or high end. I just don't get it. And you score this guy, like, it's just really hard to follow, right? Like, yeah, you've got Dagenet here, 2 below average categories. So I don't know. I don't want to spend all the show just going off. But the point I'm trying to make is that, like, I have a hard time following the logic and understanding how in the period of 2 months stuff can happen where a player will leap around, let alone like a large batch of players. Yegor Shilov was 29 on his list. Now he's at 100 and something, right? Like, what happened? I don't even think he played a game, right? So something's weird. Something's going on, and I don't know what the story is there, and I don't think I will ever know. Wyatt Cullen, what do you think he could be? Top 6 winger? Like, maybe. I think there's risk in his game, but in terms of pure skill level and his upside and the youth in his game, yeah, like a playmaking top 6, really creative playmaker. I think he needs to work on his strength on his feet, his skating ability, his ability to make plays in tight spaces and everything, but his puck control and his perimeter game is really, really good. Really good. Yes, I do like my gloves, exactly. Which prospect could you conceivably be top 5 that would be a major surprise? Most conceivable but off-the-board pick? Maddox Dagenet. Go down the list of your first rounders. For each prospect, what would be the highest they could be drafted where the team's scouting director could justify the pick? I mean, I can only speak for myself. But McKenna, Stenberg, I'd say 1. I've got Lawrence at 3, but I'd say Lawrence you could justify as high as, like, in my books, 3. But that, yeah. Schmitz, I'd say 2. Bjork, I'd say 2. Preston, he's at 6 for me. I wouldn't push for him higher than that, as much as I love him. Same thing for Villeneuve at 7. Verhoff, I'd say 3. Gustafsson, probably no higher than I have him, which is 9. Reed, if you really are optimistic about his game, 4, 3 or 4. Novotny, probably around where I have him. Like, I don't think I could take Novotny in the top 10, but after these guys are off the board, these defensemen and these centers that I really like, yeah, for sure. Same thing with Cullen, Hermansen. Belchet's, I'd say 10-ish, maybe. Malhotra, same, like 10-ish. Svensk, I mean, I think the world of Verdi Svensk, but I wouldn't push him any higher than like 15. Carroll's, maybe 12. Hemming, 15-ish, maybe 16. Suvanto is interesting. I bet you could. I would listen to an argument to Suvanto if it were 7th or 8th and Stenberg and Bjork were off the table. I would be very sketched out, but I could see that argument. Mutrin, probably nowhere higher than I have him, at like mid-teens. Håkansson, similar. Plant, yeah, similar. Morozov, honestly, mid-teens, 16, 17-ish, something like that. Like, if Malhotra's off the table and Suvanto is there, it would be tough. But if Suvanto's gone, then Morozov in the mid-teens, I think, could make sense. Lynn, I'd say Lynn, like, around here. He's at 24, yeah, early 20s. Blale, similar, early 20s. Sorensen, again, mid-20s, something like that. Anderson, if all the centers ahead of him are gone, 20, maybe. Pugachev, similar, 20. Like, if you know, like, I like Mutrin a little more, but I'm not going to complain if Pugachev is available, and he's a good player. Ignatavicius I have also in this range, and yeah, like late 20s. Hextall, if you've got scouts that really like Hextall, I can understand it. And Hextall being like 15 could be a good one. Hextall there makes sense for me. Oh my god. Hextall, like, if you really believe in him and you think there's a lot to chew on in his game, he scored a gorgeous goal the other night. I was watching a game, Youngstown, the other day, and like, he attacked the net and just dangled the heck out of everyone and just went post to post, and it was incredible. And I was like, well, I haven't seen much of that out of you, so if there's more of that in your game coming down the pipe, then yeah. I could see Hextall being an option in the mid-teens. Like, I think there's an argument for him over a Suvanto. You know, I'm a little pessimistic about him, but I also have a game of him to do tomorrow, so we'll finish him up tomorrow and do a report on him. But I love Jack Hextall. I really, really do. Now I'm looking at this. I think I might have him a little too low, but we'll bump him up. We'll bump him up a little bit. Closing out my first round, Piperinen and Golier. Both of them are similar. I'd say similar to where I've got like a Holkinson or a Plant or Morozov, like 20 and beyond. Like, once you get past the mid-teens in any draft class, it does really open up. And there's a lot of cases you could make. Like, even going beyond my first round, like, if you wanted Ryder Cali at 25, I could see it, you know? I could see it. Or if you wanted I don't know. I mean, past that point, yeah, we're getting a little bit off the beaten path here, a little bit. Yeah, Ryder Cali is one. I really liked him at the World Under 18s. But anyway, something like that. One thing I've noticed in the playoffs is how deadly rush chances can be. Who would you see are great players off the rush in this draft? Well, you see a lot of forwards certainly doing that. I mean, for me, Mathis Preston for sure. Tynan Lawrence for sure. I think that's also a big reason why I have them so high. Malhotra, yeah, I'd say Malhotra's rush offense is pretty good. Blale. I mean, if you really believe in just pure brute force, maybe Casey Mutrin, guys like that, Pugachev, Anderson. Those guys generate quite a bit on the rush. Yeah. Where else do we? Pronman had Line over Matthews. Yes, he did. This is a pattern of behavior for him. I don't know. I mean, like, I don't know. I don't know. All I know is that I track people's rankings for a reason, and when I see how wildly different between 2 months can be, I mean, I know I can shift things around relatively quickly, but I'm in front of the camera for 4 or 5 hours a week, and I can explain it if people are curious. But by and large, I'm not making radical shifts a whole lot. There are guys where the more I watch them, they'll like edge up, right? Like, I had Ryder Cali as a D&D at the beginning of the year, and now he's like a fringe first-round pick for me. Like, I've grown to really like Ryder Cali, and I think the package that's there is really intriguing. Same thing goes for like Adam Valentini. He's kind of marched up my list all year. But like Nordmark, Aram Olsen, Command, a lot of guys are still kind of where I've had them for a while. Yeah, like Blale's risen up my list. He's risen up my list a lot since my last ranking for sure. But I don't know. I'm not throwing caution to the wind on a whole lot of this. You think Caleb is good? Like, well, I mean, he is good. Middle 6, 50-point center. I mean, sure. Yeah, I could see that. What do you want to see improve in Belch's game at Michigan State? I would like to see a little bit. I'd like to see him a little lighter on his feet, like a little more fleet of foot, a little bit better escape velocity, and I think that utilizing that to like close gaps quicker, play a more physical game. I don't mean like I need him to be mean. I just mean like when he's getting engaged along the boards, just being a step or two quicker, getting a little bit, more of that like hunger for the puck could be a huge benefit. I'd also really like some skills training there. Like his touch on the puck is a little bit clunky. As a like what I mean by that is like he was a neutral zone reception target a lot of the time, at least in my experience, and like catching those pucks cleanly and gaining control and getting him in his sort of puck control stance or whatever you call it. That was a bit clunky, and like that can be a huge difference maker for an offensive player. So that kind of being an improvement would be something that I'd really like. But beyond that, like he's projectable. He's an interesting player. I think he could be a really good complementary guy, but that's the kind of thing out of Michigan State that I'd like to see a little more out of him. There's a little bit of that like kind of Porter Martone-esque profile to him in terms of like the style of not in terms of like the pure talent. Like I don't think he's as skilled or as good a finisher or as creative really at all, but like in terms of the way that Porter Martone was at the OHL level and then going to the NCAA, there was a pretty big shift, and I think a similar type of tweak from Nightingale could do really well for Belchitz. Where do you see Van Hanen going? His projection to the NHL? Well, I don't know about him projecting to the NHL, but I did watch some of Everett's playoff run, and there's been someone in the Discord server talking about Van Hanen quite a bit. And I've seen a lot of the Silvertips this year, and Van Hanen's been good. And I put him on the list. Like, I think considering his age, I think he's an extremely good finisher. His skill level is really good. He's got an absolutely ridiculous wrist shot as well. For me watching him, it's always like he's a little small. He plays small. He needs to be an open ice. He's a volume shooter a lot of the time, and that's tough to replicate and project. I also think he very, very, very much benefits from playing with Julius Miettinen, who has really come a long way in the last couple of years. And I think Miettinen does a lot of heavy lifting for him, a lot of heavy work. But at the end of the day, watching Van Hanen with a bunch of the other guys right at the tail end of my list, especially considering he's like days away from being eligible in the draft this year for the first time, I go, yeah, you know what? I think I could see how this guy could be a good pickup for someone, and not just as a watch list guy, but as like a swing on skill, right? Like if it were him versus Yegor Shilov, I think you could argue either one and have similar concerns about both, but they're not guys you don't want ranked, right? So he's a good player though. But I do see similar sort of styles and similar sort of approaches to the game and problems in their game as I do with like an Ivan Fomin. You know what I mean? Like they're right next door to each other on my list. It's like they're rambunctious, they've got really good energy, but is it going to be enough for the NHL? Is it going to be enough to be that creative offensive player that can do a bunch of different stuff? That's a high bar to clear, and I'm not sure that they're there. But I love them, and they should be on the list. The draft without a first is no fun. Don't worry, you'll be all right. There's still going to be some good players to be had. Who knows? Villeneuve might be a second-round pick. Preston might be a second-round pick. That'd be fun. Which of Malhotra and Lawrence do you think is the first-line center for BU? Well, Lawrence already is there. So, I mean, I would think Lawrence. And watching both of them this year, like, I'd probably play Lawrence a little more than Malhotra, but at the very, very least, they're a 1-2. Like, who cares? Like, I probably want Malhotra on the power play if I was playing on Lawrence can play on the power play too, obviously, but like being the center on the power play and definitely seeing him as an asset there, yeah, Malhotra could be a power play guy. But I think in terms of just overall 200-foot impact on the game, I trust Lawrence a lot more than I trust Malhotra. But that doesn't mean I don't like Malhotra. I don't trust him. It's just a matter of like, I lean more in one direction than the other. Is Carolina 8-0 in the playoffs? Is Colorado 7-1? Yes, they are. You're actually, Colorado's 8-1, right? Who knows? Those teams are good. Those teams are good. Got credit to the Minnesota Wild. They gave Colorado a run for their money, man. That was a tough series, even though it only was 5 games. Carolina, man, you watch that team play. Like I've said it before. Someone in Carolina a couple years ago said, I don't know why more teams aren't just copying our strategies and our tactics and how we play the game. It's like I think he said, like, I think teams think they are, but they're not. And I think he's right. I think that person was right. But Carolina is steamrolling their way through the playoffs right now, and doing so quite convincingly, I would say. Kanserov just signed with Chicago. I did see that. What's a player and team fit that you really enjoy or want to manifest? I mean, Toronto and McKenna could either be the greatest thing that ever happened to Toronto or the worst, and it is going to be a lot of fun to see that happen. I mean, everybody loves a good Swede in Vancouver, right? Stenberg or Bjork in Vancouver would be fun. Schmitz in San Jose would be a lot of fun too. I think he would be a very, very good player for them. And the type of, like, if that team is the vibes team with some really fun offensive talent, I would think that Schmitz could be a very good fit. And if he went second overall to San Jose, it would not surprise me. And it would be a tough sell for me to skip over a Stenberg for him, but I could be convinced. And I'll be watching him at the World Championships to see how he looks, and watching Stenberg, and because at that point you kind of have to see how they look at that level and just compare them and just kind of take another look and open mind approach type thing. But I like him a lot. So there's a few. Xavier Villeneuve going to Colorado or something, and wherever Colorado is drafting, who knows? If every team was an open book, how do you think their player development would differ? Just trying to imagine what teams in Anaheim and Dallas might do versus Rangers or Winnipeg. It's a really good question. I don't know a tremendous amount about specifically how NHL teams do player development. I mean, my knowledge might be a little outdated, but I know in the past, at least, there have been teams where their version of player development is, welcome to camp, kids. Let's do some drills. Here's what we think you need to get better at. See you next summer. To some, that's what it is. Here's your tracksuit. See you next year, right? Other teams are very different. Other teams have people in contact with their players all the time, and watching a lot of their games and giving them updated packages and everything. Like, I interviewed for an NHL job that was basically a pro scout, and it was essentially like monitoring a division in the league and the team's prospects, and providing some reporting on a weekly basis on a player, on some young players. It didn't matter who. It was just like they had to be young players in the system and blah, 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 blah. So like there's a bit of development in that job too, right? So that team kind of incorporated that into a scout's job. So everybody kind of does it a little differently. And at the end of the day, it's really hard to know. And I think it also matters too, like the proximity that your minor league team is to your men's team. But yeah, and also like the tricky bit is like you have a bunch of players that could be playing for a wide variety of different coaches around the world of different calibers and qualities and preferences, right? So in my mind, you want to ride the line of making sure the player is doing what you think they need to do to get better, while also being in an environment where their coach is going to trust them and play them enough where they're confident and putting up good results and feeling good about themselves, right? At the end of the day, you're talking about teenagers still, and whether you like it or not, like where they're at mentally matters, like the story I always think about was one that I heard Terry Ryan tell. It might have been, was it on, I don't know, I forgot what show it was on, but Terry Ryan was telling a story about his first summer. He was like 18 years old, and it was his first summer in Montreal. And was it Michel Therrien who was the coach? Called him into his office, was smoking a cigarette. Terry Ryan goes in. He says absolutely nothing to Terry Ryan at all. And then just says, get the F out of my office, and then sends him on his way. I don't think that's very good player development for a teenager. It's like that whole, like, you don't know if I like you or not type thing. And like that, I don't know. That doesn't really get me thinking that that's the right way to go about it, but depends. Reed's points prorated to how good his point totals on the Bulldogs. He would have had 56 points. Yeah. Malhotra would have had 72 on the Sioux Greyhounds. Yeah. I mean, that's kind of the thing, right? Like I've done this a number of times. But I'll pull it up again. I will say I haven't updated his ratings, so please don't screen cap and share because these are unfinished. But this is what I've got on Malhotra, right? Like, it's not necessarily anything bad, but like, like Malhotra's offensive threat is almost 16, which is not great. A third of the team's shot attempts are coming through him in some way. He's not wasting his opportunities. But like his playmaking is very volume oriented. Like, for all the moaning and wailing about how Mathis Preston's offense is aimless, he's completing more of his slot passes. He's sending a tremendous amount more. He's generating a lot more offense. His generating half of his team's offense, and his shot selection is a little bit worse than Malhotra, but he's generating scoring chances at a rate that is higher. So, there's a lot going on here that I just kind of go, I don't know if this is an elite top level player. I think he's a good one, but I don't know about this whole, like, he could go first overall type thing. Like, if that's the case, I don't know what player, like, being on the Brantford Bulldogs and being underwater in shot differential in my sample, not awesome. And when I watch him defensively, I can kind of see how that can happen. But again, I'm really cautious. I'm really hesitant because I don't want to make it sound like I hope this guy fails, right? I'm not doing that. But I do believe that there's a lot of risk. There's a lot of risk. What's my sample size? Well, my sample size is 5-on-5, an hour and a half. But I'll tell you this much. The numbers don't change like at all past like 4 games. Like, for the way that I do things, like it's why I don't track like goals and assists, because they don't happen very often. That can be very noisy, but like there are on average like 80 transitions a game going both directions, and like Malhotra will pass the puck 30 times, 25 times. Well, maybe not that many, but over the course of a sample, those numbers don't really change all that much. And I don't like I only really track after a certain point in the season playing against good teams, like the teams that are higher up in the standings, to see what they're like, and especially in the Canadian Hockey League, I'll do that. And and also, like, I don't have the time to do more than this. I work pretty much 9 a.m, 6 p.m. straight, not tracking games the whole day, but about 6 or 7 hours a day I'm tracking data. And I'm up to like 600 games this year or something of players. I just don't have the time to do like 10 on a guy. And I find that the way that the data goes, it generally tries to capture, it's not necessarily about the numbers themselves, it's about how they're generated. And like, is it fixable to improve these numbers? And the answer is always yes, but the point is to identify things. And like, sometimes I don't believe it. Sometimes guys put up numbers and I don't believe it. But there's also stuff where you look at it and the differences are so staggeringly wide at a similar level of play that it's like, if you're going to hand wave it away and say, well, the sample size isn't big enough, then I can't win. Like, I won't be able to win because I'm not going to go out and like double the sample size. And even if I did, right, that would imply that when I double the sample size with a difference, say, with Preston and Malhotra, that gap right now is so wide that to make them equal in another 7-game sample, Malhotra would have to double Preston, and Preston would have to have Malhotra, right? I can't help but think what the ratios would change a ton if it were a different sample. But like, maybe, but again, like this is why I don't really like data for the purposes of scouting. It's a useful tool, and it gives you more information, right? Like, the thing is, the point is to look at those two players, for example, and go, all right, you're saying a thing about one player and a different thing about another. I don't see the evidence of that. And on top of that, is an NHL scout, like, look, going to the rinks, you might see Malhotra play 20 times, but with no data that you're collecting from the performances, and you're sitting there watching the games happen live with no ability to watch stuff back, There is no way you're going to convince me you're going to come away with better information than what I do. I've been around long enough. I've been in enough rinks. I've tried it the traditional way. I feel way less informed. So like, you know, and they are spread out through the season. They're spread out. I try to track a guy once a month. It's cross-sectional. Look, I don't know what to tell you. I don't know how to convince you. I'm not telling you that I am guaranteed to be correct, but it's also why I make the videos. Like, the Preston one is done. Subscribers can view it now. You will see the evidence for where all of this comes from pretty awfully quick, right? You'll see them awfully quick. And if we're talking about a Caleb Malhotra, again, it's not a perfect correlation, but Caleb Malhotra putting up those types of numbers, being drafted top 3, and turning out to be whatever it is people want him to be, it would be pretty unprecedented in my data set, in my history. And when I watch him, I can see where these values are coming from, right? It's the same story. It's the same story with a different player. Here, we'll go to a different guy. We'll go to a different player here. Oh, for crying out loud. We'll go to a different one. Like Klepov. Klepov is in the OHL too, right? He's playing, was among the leading scorers. He was the leading scorer. But again, when you watch Nikita Klepov, a lot of the numbers are very similar to Malhotra. The actual output offensively is really small at 5-on-5. He's not a huge generator of offense. And while he's not wasting a ton of his chances, there's nothing spectacular about this. His defensive impact is much, much more limited relative to Malhotra, but a lot of the numbers line up similarly. Whereas you go to, I don't know, I think Hurlburt's similar. Like Hurlburt is similar, right? Like this, again, like maybe I am seeing 7 of the players' worst games of the year, and maybe I'm seeing 7 of the best games of the year out of other players. But in my experience, like, I think I'm being pretty honest and realistic and clear when I look at a player. I don't feel like past doing what I do 3 or 4 games, I learn much. Like, it's not very often that I watch guys and over the course of the season, I go, wow, that's not the player that I remember early on. Sometimes it happens, right? And I'm honest when that happens. Ryder Cali is a great example, right? Carson Carrolls is another great example. I think the back half of the season for Carrolls after the World Junior looked like a much better player to me. Much more interesting player. But beyond that, like, but if it's not that case, and especially if I get to a full sample, the data doesn't shift after a while, honestly. It just, because when you have a bigger sample, obviously it's more difficult for the numbers to change. That's the point of a bigger sample. You sort of hone in on the result, right? So like, basically what's being implied here is like for a guy like Hurlburt or Klepov or Malhotra, their offensive zone threat level in my work would have to double over a doubling of the sample, and other players would have to split in half for a doubling of their sample for those two things to meet. And I think the odds of that happening just by virtue of my samples may be possible, but I don't know. This is the thing. Like, it's not a guarantee. It's not a one way. It's not a clear cut way to do things at all. But this is where I build my conviction on things, right? Like, this is where I build my conviction, and I don't know. It's really, really tricky, right? Like, I look at JP Hurlburt and go, 62% of the shots that I've seen him take are coming from the perimeter. And in my experience, the only guy that I can really think of that's like blown those expectations out of the water long term that I can look back on and go, that one I didn't see coming, but good for him, is Cutter Gauthier. Like, when Cutter Gauthier was that age, he was shooting from everywhere, man. He shot from the boards constantly. I think he only had like 25% of his shots come from scoring areas in my sample, which is like nothing. Alexander Holtz was the same. One worked, one didn't, right? So yeah, I mean, like, look, people are free to disagree with me, but for me, like, I've done this long enough where it's like I can put my chips on the table and at least back it up, and you know, and I think that with the way I do things, I pick up on details like a lot and very quickly, and after a certain point, most of the time, I'm not learning much about the players. It's more about like, all right, maybe in this game they get more opportunity to generate offense. Maybe in this game they get a little bit, you get to see a little bit more of something that you think is there, yada yada yada. So yeah, I don't know. It's tricky. It's tricky. But when you combine this with the fact, like, I watch the CHL now, it feels so slow compared to what it was, and compared to the NCAA especially. It feels, it just doesn't feel as competitive. And I think you look at the playoffs in all three leagues, and they're not that competitive, right? There are a few teams that have everything in the world. We just saw a sweep in the WHL. The OHL went the OHL went 4 games. The WHL might go 5. Prince Albert might win a game, but it's 3-1 right now. And I believe the shots were like a blowout in that series so far. I could be wrong on that, but I think I might be wrong. And Quebec, it's at 4, which, great. Moncton and Chicoutimi are very good teams. For sure. They deserve to be playing against each other. We'll see what happens. I don't know. This is just the way I do my work. I'm one person. People are free to think what they think and criticize what they want. But I'm old enough and experienced enough and have made enough mistakes where I just kind of put it out there, and whatever happens, happens. Do you think an NHL team or GM changed their mind walking up to the draft podium? No. They've got the jersey in their hand most of the time, I bet Bobby Clark felt like changing his mind when he couldn't remember Claude Giroux's name. If Brantford made the final, it would have been a 4-0 sweep. Yeah, sure, okay. But, like, you would think that the final 4 teams in the league, regardless of the combination, would not be a sweep generally, right? And again, like, the first round, the majority, I think it was 19? Was it 19 series that were sweeps or 5 games? I don't know. Look, you can go look for yourself, right? I don't know. You've referred to some CHL players, not gonna lie, I think Canadian teams should take young American top. I don't think they should take young American top end prospects. I feel like they easily get swayed to go to the States. I mean, I think on one hand you're right. But on the other hand, like, it is on the teams to make it attractive. Sweeps happen. Look at the NHL. You think? Look, the point is, with 3 different leagues, sweep after sweep after sweep after 5-game series after sweep, go look for yourself, man. like that's not. It's not. Like, I don't know, man. You're not going to convince me. Like, you're not going to convince me that this is all fine and dandy. Like, you're not going to convince me. It's not going to happen. Like, I don't know what you're looking for, man. I don't know what you want me to say. Like, the CHL's incredible. It's the greatest thing in the whole world. It's a good thing that all the really good players are leaving immediately. It's awesome that there are 63 teams across Canada who all are fighting over the same talent pool. Like it's just not. It's like I did a game. I think it was Kitchener-Saginaw. The shots at the end of the game were like 36-6. Like, I'm sorry, but yeah, they might not have had a good year in Saginaw. But, like, those are not good habits. Like, that's not a good environment, right? Like, look, if I'm now you got me going. Like in my worldview, in 20 years, the ideal outcome is all the money in Toronto, all the private schools spend money on developing their hockey programs and making them attractive, and you have a league of 8 schools in the Toronto area that have a ton of money, and all the best players go there. You have a super league of really good schools in the GTA. Like St. Andrews is the trailblazer there. Upper Canada is doing the same thing. But, you know, St. Mike's could be there. Group those teams together, give them a bunch of resources, give them a bunch of money. You save a ton of money on travel costs. Sign some cheap streaming deal. And I think that in 20 years, you could have the most competitive junior hockey league in the entire world. The jewel of the Canadian junior, of the world's juniors hockey stage. You know? I think that would be the right outcome. Right? I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe the CHL is actually the greatest thing in the whole world. But I just showed you JP Hurlburt, a scoring leader in that league, being not actually that offensively effective in scoring areas at 5-on-5. Same thing with Klepov, same thing with Malhotra. And those, like, even the Rucks are like that. Like, there is so much evidence, like, right in front of your eyeballs. Like, if you just use your eyeballs. I don't know. If I'm wrong, I'm wrong, but I don't know. Yeah, 14 out of 45 series went 6 games or more. So 31 out of 45 were 5 games or less, including 2 championship series potentially. Like that to me is not competitive. It's not. If you see a sweep in the NHL, it's usually the outlier. It's more often than not that we have like 1 or 2 series that are 5 games, right? Yeah, someone's in Kelowna saying they wonder how the hell they're going to compete for the Memorial Cup, and yet they almost went all the way. I don't know. And the number of times that I've watched and tracked guys in those leagues and then gone to the USHL or something even, like USA Hockey clearly is trying to develop a much more high-pace, high-energy physical game in their players. And I just don't know if that's the case in Canada. Like, it seems like what I think a big problem here is that we also have 3 junior hockey leagues that think they're the NHL. So you have like all these different teams that all have different priorities and have radically different ways of thinking. Like on one hand, you have Tri-City. On the other, you have Medicine Hat, right? It doesn't seem like there's any like guiding direction. Whereas in the US, I mean, I was just in the States. I was just interacting with that league. They are definitely they are trying to poke things and point things in the right direction. They're going, this is the kind of hockey we want, and this is the way we're headed, right? Anyway, I feel like we have this discussion like every week, and it's getting really annoying. So I'm just going to move on, and I got to go at some point here. Yeah, 2 of these for $44 is a good deal. I agree. Thoughts on Melvin Novotny's D+1? Well, he was a very good USHLer this year. Him and Ringer were very good together. Fun to watch. I don't know if he's an NHLer, but a good player to have in your system. How would you feel if a team like the Sharks took Schmitz? It would be a ton of fun. I'd dig it. Any changes to the list after the first few days of viewings? It looks like No Tony moved up. I don't know who No Tony is. Oh, Novotny. No, I think Novotny's in the same spot. I think that's the same spot. You've referred to the top CHL players as successful through high confidence. Does the C in CHL stand for confidence? I mean, confidence takes you a long way in hockey, though. Like, there's nothing wrong with being confident, right? Like Carson Karros has a ton of confidence. It's just going to be a matter of like, okay, if you want to play confident in the NHL and like really confident, the bar's up here, man. Like you can't be down here trying to play confident because then you're going to sit on the bench, right? That's why so many guys like think about trying things up here and then end up settling down here to keep their jobs, right? Like it's like you have to find that minimum, right? You have to find that minimum. But you're right. I think confidence goes a long way in junior hockey for sure, right? Like if you just try to dangle someone against quite a few guys, if you're at that level, you could probably pull it off. Like Tommy Blale, for example, just slicing and dicing through everybody with no problem. He just confident. Go. Right? Who's the biggest unicorn in the 2026 draft class? Someone who doesn't play like anyone else in the draft class? Alexander Karmanov? No. I mean, at the top end, in all honesty, probably Albert Schmitz. Probably. Schmitz or McKenna. Like, McKenna just is like a mutant in some areas. Maybe like Cullen is like a discount McKenna, but Schmitz for sure. What was Promin's ranking last year? That's a really good question. Did you evaluate Liam Ruck at all, or just Basha? I only have looked at Liam Ruck this year. I don't really care too much about tracking guys that have already been drafted and stuff. Basha, I'm just saying like the before and after Basha getting there is undeniable. It's undeniable. Promin's ranking last year. Let's see. Can I pull it up quick before I have to go? What time is it? 4? I got some time. Okay. Nope, that's not what I want. Pronman last year. Let's see. He was Schaefer, Misa, Martone, Hagens, no, he wasn't. Schaefer, Misa, Martone, Desnoyers, Hagens, Frondell, O'Brien, Eklund, McQueen, Martin, Aitchison, Smith, Reshny, Coots, Nesbitt, Mertka, Bear, Carbonneau, Ravensbergen. I mean, like he had ups and downs. There's things he hit on and things he missed, but yeah, so it was kind of all over the place. Yeah. It wasn't super NHL coded. I mean, Martone did not go top 3. Darn, if only he wasn't a winger, then he would be good. All right. All right, I got to race through this here. Sorry. I apologize for taking so long. Shocked to see Blale so high after how you were talking about him the other day. It's just like with Blale at that point in the draft, he's got such high-end upside, even if there is risk, that it's like you draft him and see what happens. Like, yeah, I think there's some issues, but I go with him. I call it. In the past 20 this year, he's one of the most exciting defensemen you can get. Like, he's not, I don't think he's easy to project as an NHLer right now, but yeah, no. As much as I've been critical, there's that like what if potential, and I think it's very clear. Who do you see Minnesota getting for centers? Byfield, Wright, McTavish? I mean, I doubt you would be able to pry Byfield out of LA. Wright in Minnesota could work. I think McTavish makes a lot of sense for Minnesota. Again, look at who Bill Guerin likes, right? They paid a second round pick for Michael McCarron. So they traded a bunch of smaller skilled guys for Quinn Hughes. So fair enough. But I think they're looking for beef and guys that play with that beef. And I don't see that in Byfield as much, and definitely not Wright. But McTavish, sure. If they could pry McTavish out of Anaheim, I could see that. Later down the draft, what are your thoughts on overage defensemen, given how typically long they take to develop? I like McKenzie. I could see being a guy that takes McKenzie, but I haven't seen him in detail. He's on the list as well for next week, probably. So we'll take a look. How high would you conceivably justify RM Olsen going? I don't know. In the late 20s, maybe, if you're really optimistic. Like, he's at 36 for me, 38. Yeah, like mid 20s. What are your projections for Cancerov? Depends. I mean, I see him very similarly to how I see Nick Lardis. Right? I think he could score in the AHL. He's got a wicked shot. He's dynamic. He's agile. It's just the physicality of the NHL is going to be a big test. And I don't have certainty he's going to work, but he's had a very, very good year. And who knows? What D do you think could turn out to be the best defensive defenseman in the class? I'd say Gustafsson. Maybe Verhoff. Have you messed around with Suno at all? No. Yeah, I know I'm like one of the more pro AI people around, but I have some problems with AI like creative output. Like, I think that it has its purpose. And I like that Suno is actually going to companies and licensing. But when I do research into AI licensing costs, when you see how much money is being thrown around in the AI world right now, there is not nearly enough money being put towards the source data. Like I think that the deal that Warner signed undervalues the value of a thing like Suno incredibly, incredibly badly. And I think they're going to regret that deal relatively quickly. I like the idea for something like Suno for a creative tool for like I don't have access to a full band, right? But if I did, would it allow me to write more music on my own? Sure. But that's a very big thing that's different to I just went into it and told it to write me a song and put that song on Spotify. Like, that is where you kind of lose me. But using it as a tool to like flush out your own contributions and like being like, well, I need a drum part and I don't know any drummers and I live in rural Arkansas. And so like, there's no way I'm going to be like, if it's the difference between making a record and not making a record, I can see how it's a very good tool to have. But like AI image generation, it's not even that good, you know? But I do think that it does have a purpose for something along the lines of like, I do think there is a sort of musical genre that doesn't really exist that is a little bit separate from writing music, right? Like, to me, I see it as very potentially similar to like the music you hear in a shopping mall walking around, right? Like mall soft music. Like, for stuff like that, where you just put it on for 3 hours and it's in your earbuds and you're just working away and it doesn't matter. Like, whatever. It's not distracting. It's muzak for the background. Elevator music has been a thing for decades, right? And elevator music didn't replace Michael Jackson, if you get what I'm saying. But it's about like the ethical use of it and all that stuff. And that's a bit of a sketchy area for me. Like, I have professional experience in music copyright, and I think that these AI companies are getting a pretty good deal considering the potential that there is in this technology, and especially in the world of music. All right. I think on that note, okay. Oh, my chat froze. Of course it did. I'm considering joining the Discord. What goes on? Well, we watch some tape in there most days, like 3 days a week. I pull some archived stuff and we watch it together. I gather some data. We watch NHL together some nights during the playoffs and during the season. There's all kinds of stuff. It's like it's pretty active and it's fun. I mean, you can always just get a month and try it, and then I'll boot you at the end of the year if you don't stick around. Like, it's $5, if you want. Or you could wait till next month and try to win a free year. There's that too. What the opposition hears when McDavid's skating towards them. I think I can. Yeah, exactly. Do you think Verhoff goes top 4 just because of his size? I don't think so. I don't think so. Okay, we'll do the Survivor episode, and then I got to get out of here. I got to get on the train. This season has quickly taken a turn for the worse, in my opinion. I won't spoil anything, but I don't know. There's only one person left that I would be like, if they won, I would get off my couch and like do the Peter Griffin crying and clapping thing, you know? There's a particular person who I just adore, and I really hope they win. I don't know. I mean, it just seems like a couple of instances and a couple of events have turned the whole season on his head. I mean, the one particular person who got voted out, the legend of the game, I mean, take a bow. I thought I could not believe that they almost pulled off the move that they tried, based on like how much of a target they were and how much of a target they should have been. You know, it's like trying to take down the Carolina Hurricanes when they're missing half their lineup, and somehow they find a way to convince you to also bench half your lineup. You know what I mean? And then eventually you're like, hey, you tried to trick me. And then you win, right? Like, but they tried, and you're like, I almost fell for it, you know? But like, mad respect, because you almost got me. And I mean, I still love this season. I think it's great, even though some of the I think it's one that it's how do I put it? It's one that's had its ups and downs, and the twists are ups and downs and stuff, but I also hope that they keep the prize money at $2 million from this season onwards. I hope that coin flip is a permanent change and not just for this season, because as much as it's nice to win $1 million, at the end of the day in the US, you're keeping, depending on where you live, maybe 450 grand, 500 grand, depending, maybe, which for doing what you go through in Survivor feels like not enough anymore. It's not 2,000 anymore. $1 million in 2000 when I was a kid, holy jumping. But I mean, I think if you scaled it for inflation, let's see, inflation calculator. No, I want the American one. $1 million in 2000 is worth $2 million. So, yeah, it's about time. It's her, isn't like she's the one who can win both things at the same person. I don't know if we're thinking the same person. It's the person who didn't have any confessionals for like the first third of the season, and she is one of the only people left with like an electrifying personality that I just want to hang out with. You know what I mean? I'm sure you know who I'm talking about, but I think she's great, and I hope she wins. She's a little bit beaten down. She was a target last night, didn't get cut. She's gonna be a target again, for good reason, but I hope she gets her way to the end. I hope she does. It'll be really good. I'm more curious with confidence in the CHL. Why is it less of a factor in other leagues, in your opinion? Fewer teams, worse rush defense? I think both. I think in other leagues, yeah, there is. I think in the USHL, they are more aggressive. They're more physical. There's a lot more tighter gap control defensively. I think there's a lot of that. But I mean, there is still some level of there is some. Yeah, okay, we're thinking the same person. There is some still level of a similar thing, but yeah, I mean, I think also in Canada, one thing we do really well is skills training, and we give kids the confidence to try those things and the confidence to have the skill and use it. And I think it's just a little different in the US. Like, it's not like they don't do that, but the general feel of the game in the USHL with fewer teams and a little bit, I think, more of a competitive environment, even if the players aren't as skilled, it's a little bit different, right? So yeah, but again, like, think of the numbers. 60 plus teams spread around the entire country relative to 16 in the USHL, something like that. Like, just the numbers don't make sense. So if the gap between the haves and have-nots is very, very wide, that gives players a lot of leeway to have that confidence. Whereas in the US, if everything is a lot more compacted and the floor is higher and the ceiling is lower, then that confidence only goes so far, right? So it's not like it never happens, but I don't know. I definitely do notice it a lot. Like, I think that's how you see guys like a Hurlburt and like a Ruck, scoring a ton. But anyway, I gotta go. Thank you very much for joining me. We'll be back Monday night, same time, 8 p.m. Eastern. Forza Horizon 6 comes out soon. I'm psyched about that. I'm a Forza boy, so that's going to be fun. But yeah, in the meantime, have a great weekend. Thank you very much. Monday night, we have a scouting report tomorrow. We'll be doing Preston tomorrow, and then Carroll's next week, Svensk next week. I think Villeneuve will be next week as well. But again, if you're a subscriber to the person who's curious about the Discord server, you can view the reports as soon as they're done, and I'll be getting to work on those. I'll be filming a few more tomorrow, and they'll be available hopefully over the weekend. So yeah, thanks for watching. We'll see you Monday night, and I'm off to Toronto to go see a member of our community and watch the Habs game. So enjoy. That series has been a banger if you haven't seen it yet. So definitely tune in, and we'll see you Monday night. Okay, bye.